You're watching Japan Journal, the internet's #1 weekly English language online cybercast from Japan. Japan Journal with Mal Adams. This edition of Japan Journal features an episode of our new and improved series, Rap About It. We urge you to view our YouTube channel regularly for original content seen nowhere else on the internet or in the new meta-universe. Please click the like icon, the share button, and the notification bell, and then subscribe to this channel to be alerted when new video programs are uploaded and published. You'll be glad you did. Thank you very much for your ongoing support of our programming on GNN, the global news network, powered by DDM, the Totown digital metaverse platform.
And now here's your host, Malcolm Adams.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Japan Journal. I'm your host, Mal Adams, here, coming to you live from beautiful downtown Kagawa City in the Media Arts Lab here on Japan Journal, the internet's #1 weekly English language online cybercast from Japan, with yours truly, Mal Adams, as your host. Today we have a continuation in the series of Black History episodes on another edition of Rap About It. And my special guest today is Mr. Dwight Bailey, one of my best friends over the years, past 50 years or more, who is going to join us here today, coming live from his second home in Hawaii, in Honolulu. And let me just describe briefly what he's involved in here, and he can enhance this as we. By the way, what's up, Dwight?
How you doing, brother?
I'm good, man. Let me share this background for you, for my viewers who are we're streaming to live on Facebook. By the way, for all of those of you who are listening, please read that description. Please feel free to click the play button on that, and if you feel so inspired to give us a chat, shout us out on the chat box on your Zoom application there. But Dwight is one of my best friends in life. He is for over the past 40 years, or actually for a period of 40 years, of increasingly progressive experience as an energy and environmental management professional at the municipal and federal government levels. Dwight works with utility and public and private clients in developing and managing energy efficiency and clean energy projects. Dwight interprets federal regulations and funding opportunity announcements and writes grants for local, state, and federal funding. He also helps build strategic public-private partnerships necessary for successful management and completion of projects. Dwight retired from the U.S. Department of Energy in 2012 after over 12 years of service as a program project officer of solar and wind energy projects. And that is just a brief description of what Dwight has accomplished in his professional life. But I'll ask you to explain all of that to me. What does that mean, Dwight? First of all, I've got you in my memory. By the way, this represents a reunion for us.
Yeah.
Great to be reconnected with you on this social media application, my brother. And it's my pleasure. Wakanda for life.
Wakanda for life.
It's my pleasure to be able to reunite with you and share our mutual experiences without revealing too much incriminating information, but we'll be adept at dancing around those things as two young brothers coming up in our college days. But the significance of it is, and why I've reached out to you, is because you played an important role in our early days as a person who came from the East Coast to the Midwest and started your academic life. Describe that to us, if you will, to begin with. How did we hook up initially? Tell us about your journey from Hackensack, New Jersey to Omaha, Nebraska.
Well, I'm glad to be here with you now. Thank you so much for inviting me. Yeah, I came to Omaha from Hackensack in the fall of 1967 and met you right away because back in those days, the college we attended, UNO, which was actually called Omaha University,
back in
1967, had no dormitories. And because of segregation, any people of color who migrated to Omaha, most of whom were striving athletes or what have you, lived in the Black community. And I had the good fortune of living right around the corner from you and meeting you and your esteemed family. And so, and as it turned out, with us being freshmen, we were in the same history course together with Dr. Riley. Well, not Dr. Riley.
Political science, wasn't it?
No, it was history.
Okay.
It was a history course because you and I on Sundays used to go to Creighton University and study at the library.
Yeah.
But really, the only reason I studied with you is because your moms used to make a big pot of chili.
Shout out to Mama Adams.
And on Sundays, I'd come over and eat. I had never eaten homemade chili before I moved to Nebraska from New Jersey, northern New Jersey. So anyway, that's how that happened. So in '67, and I eventually majored in criminology, criminal justice.
Yeah, that's what my remembrances of your early academic training. You were headed to toward a career in criminal justice.
Exactly. And majoring in that, but I had the good fortune of also moving into some other ventures as things unfolded. Because in '67, '68, our freshman year, Omaha became famous because it was the biggest city in Nebraska. And it became home to national political importance for the 1968 election that was coming up. And now you may recall that in 1968, we all volunteered and worked on the campaign of Senator Robert F. Kennedy.
Bobby Kennedy campaign, absolutely, man.
The Bobby Kennedy campaign.
We were as active as anybody who volunteered in that. Yeah, I remember.
Exactly. It's recorded, and I mean, there were pictures of us in Ebony magazine, Time magazine.
You've actually shared video footage of that, which I would love to find. Yeah. I may insert it later in post-production, but certainly, yeah, we were definitely.
Exactly.
You reminded me that I was in the back seat of his vehicle or something at one point.
Yeah.
Describe that. Well, I have vague memories, but you were more active than I was, I think, at the time.
Well, you know, it was critical for back then to get the voter registration up in the so-called Black community.
Right.
Because as I recall, the numbers could be wrong. This was over 50 years ago. But as I recall, eligible Black voters or eligible people who could vote were registered at such a low level. And it was critical the way they had the cognoscenti, the brain power of Kennedy had figured it out to get the Black community registered up. Back then, they were registered at a rate of about 20%. We wanted to get them up to 80%. And it was a thing. And we got all these college students, of which we were a part, involved in that and all that. But that led into so many other things.
Fast forward for a minute, and let's feel free to go back and forth and make some comparative analysis as we go along here, because this show, after all, is to commemorate Black History Month in general terms, but specifically this particular series of the new and improved Rap About It program, which was I discovered and created back in those days as a young broadcast journalist in 1969, coming off the 1968 and the 1967 revolt of the Black community in Omaha, Nebraska, due to some incidences that I will let you describe if you recall. But voter registration is pertinent to all politics, even today. And it kind of caught on back in that day, that proactive activity about registering the black vote. It's been crucial.
It's been very crucial. And, you know, and the thing I learned, I mean, I was still, I was 17 when I started college. So when we were working with the Kennedy campaign, I was 18. You know, the second semester of our freshman year.
When is your
Green,
birthday?
my birthday's September,
Yep. Okay. So you would have started.
September of 49.
You just turned. You would have just turned. Yeah. Right. Don't even.
I was 17 for 2 weeks
Yeah.
in college.
I graduated from high school at 17 for 2 days.
Right.
I turned 18
Yeah.
on June 10th.
Same here.
You know, and so
Yeah.
yeah, so we're 1949, brother. Wow.
Ooh.
Indeed, indeed. So yes, go on, go on. What we're trying to
So,
describe is
but
the
anyway,
environment that you came into from the East Coast, and I'll get you to go back and describe the difference of how you would have grown up had you stayed in the East Coast as compared to what happened to your life when you came to the Midwest and joined our community. Let me shout out to the brothers like Jimmy Jones and Sam Singleton, our big brothers who came along at that point in time. Sam Singleton, shout out to Sam, speedy recovery, just had a mishap, I think injured his leg, has coined the phrase, I hope I get this right, East Coast Midwest connection for life or something like that. He's in the process of writing a book about this very phenomenal period in our shared experiences right now. So shout out to Sam Singleton and wish him all the best and good luck with this book. But you're here to testify firsthand about some of the aspects of that story. And
yeah, I came after them a little bit, but I knew Sam well because even after I graduated college and working in human services, I would work with Sam then.
Right.
You know, and he was a great singer too, by the way.
The soulful Sam Singleton.
Yes. And I did have, you mentioned Jimmy Jones. I did have the opportunity to meet him when he and Carter Mobley, they visited back. They came back to visit in Omaha, and I did get a chance to meet those brothers. So
yes, indeed.
it was a great thing. But you asked me to contrast. You guys from the Midwest knew how strong-headed we were from the East Coast, coming out there thinking we knew it all. Oh, we thought you guys spoke funny, you know, with your Middle Western dialect or accents. And because the thing I always found so hilarious about Omaha was that there were 3 words that all sounded the same when people would say it to me. And this is the way you guys said it.
Okay.
Mary had a little lamb, Merry Christmas, and I'm going to get married.
Okay, I didn't know that.
And I just found that hilarious.
All right,
Because
what's the converse then? How did y'all pronounce it?
We said
East Coast.
Mary had a little lamb. Mary had a little lamb. Merry Christmas, and I'm going to get married.
How does
And so
marry and get married, how does that differ? I couldn't hear the difference.
Oh, you couldn't? Well, that's because I spent time in the Midwest.
Yeah, right, probably. But I find that interesting. Thank you for that little lesson because I'll apply that to my training of my Japanese students who are studying English now. The pronunciation of the vowel has 2 sounds, the long A, make, M-A-K-E, and matter, or baseball bat, hat, cat, which they cannot say. They just have to. It's not in their dialogue, you know, not in their vocabulary. That sound, so it's a learned sound, and I'm telling you, man, It's one of my biggest problems. Let me get rid of this browse for folder notification I've got coming up. Okay. So that's interesting. Yeah. So you guys had that East Coast accent, which was all new to us, and I thought it was pretty cool. You know.
And we used to bring the latest dances out there.
Yeah, the latest dances, but you apologize for thinking you were all of that and knew a lot, but you did. We thought you did too. Inspired and impressed by your knowledge of big city life in New York. You're a suburb of New York, coming up in Hackensack,
Suburb.
New Jersey, in northern New York. I
Yeah.
subsequently, because of my relationship with you, and shout out to Harold Dow, may he continue resting in peace, my mentor, a guy who preceded me in the news business. I saved a lot of tuition money in college because when we shared our first year in college together, by my second year, first semester, I turned professional as a broadcast journalist.
Yeah.
Thanks to a shout out that Harold Dow had given me when I was a few months earlier. That said, hey man, they're looking for some more brothers. Go down and the audition is such and such. And I was hired on the spot. That's thanks to Harold. So he was a brother to me, and our careers paralleled. And I ended up spending the reverse time in Hackensack, New Jersey, your hometown, where you and Harold grew up. Shout out to Jimmy
Yeah.
Dow, Judge Jimmy, and all the good brothers from Hackensack, New Jersey that I befriended and became brothers with in Omaha, Nebraska. And the rest, as you can say, is history. For my 52-year career as a journalist, that's where it all started. But how did you get from human services to clean energy efficiency planning and strategizing? In a words, that's a long story, I know, but give me what that transition was, if you don't
Well,
mind.
real quick, I graduated from UNO in December of 72, and then ended up staying in Omaha, working
Okay.
in human services and so forth until, well, I left Omaha in 76. And by then, I had met my bride to be.
Mhm.
Before then, she's from Chicago, and she had actually came to Omaha to go to Creighton to do graduate work in health administration. They didn't have that, blah, 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 blah. So I met her. And this is a true story
Okay.
because everything is a learning experience.
Yes.
And this is what I want the listeners to know. Like most people during our time, I used to smoke cigarettes.
I remember.
And cigarette smoking is truly bad for your health because I met my wife at Carter Lake by bumming a cool cigarette off her. True story.
Okay.
That's my running joke. It's a true story. That's how I did it.
Yeah.
I bummed a cigarette off her in the early 70s, 73 or so.
Awesome. Okay.
But long story short, so how I got when I left, after we got married, she ended up going to school in Cincinnati. She got her master's, and then we moved to New Orleans, Nolens, as they say,
Knowledge.
Nolens. And I was 6 years out of college with some work experience, figuring I'm a black man with a degree in the 70s. I'll go down south, no problem getting a job. And I found out to my dismay that it was tricky. So I ended up going to graduate school at UNO, the University of New Orleans,
I see. Okay.
in urban and regional planning. And in pursuing my graduate degree, I had to figure out what it is, what pathway, what did I want to be a specialist in? And at that time, in 73, we had the first Arab oil embargo.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was in school in 79, we had the second one. And I took a course and read this book called Energy Futures. And it clicked with me. And we had something with the city. By the way, I forgot. I got the opportunity to work for the city of New Orleans.
I see.
Mayor's office of planning and development. And I got the opportunity to sit on a committee called the Energy Task Force, representing my department. And I just took off.
Okay.
And
Let's talk more about that later. I don't want to get too far off of what the most
Sure.
interesting part of our shared experience is the fact that, and what I tried to allude to by the difference between coming up in New Jersey, had you not come to Nebraska, where you became a, a social and political activist, you were already an academician to me. You read books, you were a quick study, you had an intellectual capacity that was unique among my close friends, and you would be able to digest books and knowledge very quickly and apply it, which is why you got your master's degree. I got lucky and got turned professional. I didn't have to go to school, learned on the job. But what precipitated that was the signs of the times that was highlighted by 1967. Help me with the names. Evelyn Strong. Was that her name?
Right.
Was her last name? Was it
Strong. I remember who was killed.
shot in the back by a police
Shot in the back.
officer?
Yeah.
That started a riot in the community. I'm just describing the times. 1968, Malcolm X dies, Martin Luther King dies. Tumultuous times in American history. And
Without a doubt.
and Omaha, we had a very solid black community, which you just got immersed into when you arrived, and that became part and parcel. So you became very active. And interestingly enough,
Well, here's the deal. The reason why now it's coming back to me, the reason why I brought up the Kennedy campaign that we put a lot of time into was that there was this one particular beautiful bucolic day in May. We were working. And I remember walking back. Now, this was in May of 68.
okay,
Dr. King had already been assassinated. And I'm walking back to my house down 24th Street. I used to live at 2501 Maple Street.
yeah, all right. For those shout out to Omaha, Maple Street. I'm gonna put my
And there was this big commotion going on. And I followed it right around the corners, like on Erskine Street. And in the back of this alley, there were these police, and they were pummeling this brother. He was handcuffed. I had never witnessed police brutality before.
Wow.
This. And this guy, he probably did something. And I don't know if he did or didn't, but the point was he was handcuffed. His hands were behind. And he was laid down on the police car. And they were beating him with these sticks, like they were trying to kill him. Like I would think you beat a hog to death to try to kill him. And they're beating this guy, and they had a phalange of police keeping us. And in those days, Mal, me being the ex-wrestler that I was, I would always push my way to the front, no matter what it was, whether it was a music concert or George Wallace, protest. Yeah. Dwight's going to push to the front. I pushed to the front. And I'll never forget, I said, look, I couldn't believe this. They're beating this guy, and he's just laying there. They're going to kill him. And I'll never forget turning around to the crowd, because people were coming, cops were coming, and all of a sudden I hear, boom, one of the riot guns. Cop shoots the riot gun off. Boom. And we got quiet. And he says, all right, you don't get out of here right now. started shooting in the crowd. And so, of course, I laughed.
Of course.
Now, that became the beginning of what I would say my being militantized. All of a sudden, I was pissed. I saw it. I said, that is some racist crap. And the very
Amazing, because
next,
I can't say that I ever bore witness to something like that,
yeah,
being from Omaha, but it had to certainly
yeah.
have an impact on you as someone who had you just arrived in 1967?
No, this was 68 during the
Okay. All
Kennedy
right.
campaign, May
Okay.
of 68.
All right.
This was a Saturday. I'll never forget.
Yeah.
The very next day, there's a knock at my door at 2501. And it's this little short black guy who worked for, do you remember the Buffalo Chip
Absolutely. Newspaper, wasn't it?
newspaper?
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
And this black reporter was a guy named David Rice.
Wow.
That's how I met David. And I believe it was you who sent him to me, because I don't know how he found me. But somehow, whenever things I was involved in, it always seemed like you were in the background.
Well, because you were a surrogate for my activity. I couldn't do a lot as a young reporter on TV. So if
But none,
this
so
was
he
actually
came,
before.
yeah,
So you
yeah,
say I sent him to you?
yeah.
Maybe.
And so he interviewed me about this incident for the
Right.
Buffalo Chip.
I see.
And,
Yeah, he
and
was a writer for that
he's a
news
writer
letter. Yeah.
for the Buffalo Chip.
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
that was
A
the
word
beginning.
about tell the people who David Rice was and became. He died in prison,
He died in prison.
but at that time he was one of the militant activists,
He was an activist and
intellectual.
actually very intellectual. Creighton University dropout, a Renaissance guy,
Absolutely.
musician,
Musician. And
poet.
someone who was,
He could write poetry.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, he was brilliant, but so at any rate,
One of the early proponents of the black Muslims in Omaha, Nebraska, right?
that was probably a little before my time, but I knew him
I'm sorry, I
as a
misspoke
Black
myself. I
Panther.
said black Muslim. Wrong. Black Panthers.
Black Panther. Yeah,
All right.
and that's
Yeah.
how I knew him. And so he was, minister of information for the Omaha Black Panther Party.
Right.
And I used to spend a lot of time with him in 68, in 68, 69, into 70.
You've always been a historian. This
Yeah.
testimony you're giving, sharing with us now, which is
Mhm.
contains our personal relationship, our activity, and I appreciate you
Mhm.
because you've got a memory like no other. You remember dates and times and even the date
Right.
of the week when you see things, and it's just amazing to me. So after our series of interviews, by the way, to our listeners, this is Dwight's first of many contributions to this series. Thank you very much. And it's a way for us to reunite and share the stories of our lives, our shared experience for a several year period. And boy, that reminiscing about you shouting at my mom's chili. Wow.
Oh yeah.
Wow. That really takes me back. But thanks for sharing that, man. Shout out to Mama Adams in heaven. Absolutely, man. You were there. You were there. That's why you and I were brothers. And
Yes,
we've got a
sir.
more than 50-year relationship.
Yes,
And
sir.
I'm just so pleased and happy to be able to reminisce with you like this. But the importance of it is putting some perspective on those times and how it evolved into the status that we are in now with Black Lives Matters, critical race theory, and all of that stuff. Give our young viewers a perspective about how this did not happen overnight. This is a repetitive cycle in the history of blacks in America, and we can go back to 1619 if you want to and trace the evolution post-slavery, starting with Frederick Douglass and all of that. So thank you for keeping it in that perspective. So your militancy evolved. You described what instigated that in you And it's the first time I'm hearing that story, my friend. I don't
Yeah.
recall you ever sharing that with me, but yeah, I joke about,
Yeah.
I
In
joke,
Omaha.
I joke
We,
about,
yeah, all of us, many of us who are still around, who did leave Omaha from the East Coast, all said we became, we were mainly males. We became men, adults in Omaha,
yeah, no doubt, no doubt,
you know.
yeah, absolutely.
And the other thing I'll say just about Omaha, it is so hard, even to today, to explain to people how Omaha mattered in stuff that went on. Because whenever I tell people, oh, I went to undergrad school in Omaha, I'll get remarks like, oh, you and two other Black people. Huh?
Absolutely, yeah. It's a place, it's a flyover state. When you're on your way somewhere, that's the state you fly over with without
But
stop.
but
Yeah,
but not if you worked on the railroad. I mean, because when you, and I don't want to get into all this, but the whole thing, the music that was in Omaha, the great musicians you guys have there.
wow. Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, uh, the iconic Preston Love, who represented
Preston
that
Love,
as
yeah.
one who participated at the age of 22, sitting on the front row as an alto sax player with the likes of
Uh,
Count Basie.
oh, Basie, right, right.
Yeah, yeah, and many more in his career. Uh, I this series started with Richie Love, who's a great saxophonist, following in his father's footsteps. His big brother Preston Love Jr. has been on here. Is a an activist, a community activist, and a politician in Omaha to this day. And then Norman Love will become a guest subsequent to this interview very soon, coming up on this Rap About It series. By the way, you're watching Japan Journal's Rap About It with Mal Adams here, coming to you live from beautiful downtown Kakiao City in central Japan, Shizuoka Prefecture, on the west end of Shizuoka Prefecture, the center of the Japanese archipelago, with your host, Mal Adams here, my special guest, brother Dwight Bailey, and I do mean brother. He is like a brother to me in our formative years, from our late teens until our early mid 20s, and then there's a 40-year gap. Yeah, 50-year gap, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're reuniting. And Dwight has agreed to share his story so we can describe the environment, the signs of the times in terms of this Black History celebration, which is year long as far as I'm concerned. And so I interrupt you, but let's go to a couple of incidents. I do want to share some uh, images and media that I have assembled here. You were the president of an organization called BLAC, Black Liberators for Action on Campus. I was involved in that with you, but because as a journalist, we'll talk about that. Share that background, give us that history. And as you do that, I'm going to share a screen with you that depicts an announcement about the 50th anniversary of that organization that you started and I named. Let's go here. Let me know if you can hear this audio, please. Here we go. I'll just play a few minutes of this.
I can't hear it.
Okay, thank you for telling me that. The reason you could not hear this because I had my earphones plugged in. Now this audio is going to come through my speakers. So let me back it up and give it to you again. This is the Omaha 54. What will explain what that is. And the 50th anniversary of a group of activists from our days, and this is 50 years hence. Let me just share this with you as I get rid of some of this other of these notifications that keep popping up. Check this out, and please, Najee, if you can hear this, Dwight.
And hear it.
Good.
Welcome to the very first event celebrating our 50th anniversary of the Department of Black Studies right here on UNO's campus. What you say? This Department of Black Studies is one of the oldest Black studies in the country, and it is one of the only departments that is still a department, not a program, not a hybrid, not ethnic studies, not ethnic relations, but Black studies. None of this would have been possible without the Omaha 54. Yes. In November
Yes, sir.
1969, 54 students staged a sit-in at the president's office and demanding Black Studies courses. They got arrested. They got fingerprinted. They went to jail. They had to be bailed out. We are here tonight to honor that sacrifice and that activism. And I want to thank you personally because I came to this university to major in Black Studies specifically. And there would not have been a Department of Black Studies for me to major in were it not for the Omaha 54. Thank you.
I'm going to stop sharing that right there and just commend you, because were it not for your leadership and your activism back in the day, there would not have been an Omaha 54, and that sister would not have been able to get an education in Black Studies and subsequently become the head of the department at University of Nebraska and Omaha. Talk about what she just described, the incident that led to this 50th anniversary. 54 students under your leadership and the leadership of others. First of all, how you and I caucused about this development of BLAC, Black Liberators for Action on Campus, if you will.
Yeah, well, actually, you know, and I like to stay as close to the truth as I can, because you had mentioned I was president of BLAC. I was actually the first and the second president of BLAC. And let me explain that real quickly. BLAC, Black Liberators for Action on Campus, which was named by you because I was there, how you just came up with it. Boom, boom, boom. We say, yeah, that's what we'll call it. We caucused with that back in '68. And as I recall, BLAC actually became commissioned or certified on campus, ratified on campus in December of '68. Okay. And so everything, one thing led to another to another. You know, we were organizing ourselves, getting stuff going. What are we going to do? What it's about? Boom, boom, boom. Getting interviewed all the time. So '69 rolls in, and we had an event, as I recall. Now this is where I try to search my memory bank, and it was a dance, like a dance style show, and something went wrong in terms of logistics with this dance. And we had a lot of people attending, Black students from across Nebraska, including places like Creighton University, Duchesne College, Wahoo, the JFK in Wahoo, Nebraska.
Yeah, I remember. That's the school I was trying to think of early on.
Yeah. JFK College in Wahoo.
Absolutely.
And they had kids, girls from across the country. So, and this thing went wrong. So we were like, they're doing us wrong. And we knew it because of all the other things that had been going on since we started attending that school. So long story short, we decided to confront, um, you know, uh, draw up some grievances and present them to the president, Kirk Miller. Now, what I want to mention that's significant to this discussion now was that, and that is in, by now we're talking about November
Right.
of '69. Now, between December of '68 and November of '69, what happened that's significant is that in the summer of '69, I went to work for the National Urban League in Pontiac, Michigan. Because of my work, it was competitive. I applied. There were 700 that applied, and they chose 60 of us from across the country to do community organizing under then the National Urban League and Whitney Young, who used to run the National Urban League in Omaha. I don't know. Did you know that?
Oh,
You know that
absolutely.
now?
Of course, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, he was a homeboy. Whitney, absolutely. Omaha.
And what was God? His name is. It's getting late for me now. But
Okay, before you make that transition, are we still talking about Omaha 54, that video that we just showed, how that?
yes, we are.
Okay.
So I'm telling you, I
As you
worked.
share that, I'm going to share a photo with you just to
Yeah,
make, for continuity
yeah.
purposes, if I may do that.
So
And you tell me whether you can see this or not. Please. Do you see? Let's
I
see.
see some files that you
Okay,
have.
all right. So what I need to do is stop screen sharing, and I'm gonna go back and try to share this photo, which is a very famous photo. Tell me if you can see this, please.
I can. That's BLAC. Yeah,
Exactly. That's Black Liberators for Action on Campus, an organization that I named, but you spearheaded. And that led
yeah.
to the arrest. Many of
That's
these people in this photo were part of the
can you
54 who
can
were
you
arrested.
yeah. And you can point me out. I used to have hair back then.
This is
That's
Dwight Bailey. If you
that's
can see my
yeah.
mouse there, that's Brother Dwight sitting front and to the right in the front row there. And who's that guy standing in the second row in the middle with the shades on?
That's Mal Adams.
That would be me, huh? With a part down my hair and my
Yeah.
mild afro with a scarf on.
But the
Yeah.
only reason I brought up the Urban League stuff is that when I got really inured into community organizing, I came back. I was reelected president of BLAC, but all of a sudden I had no interest in wanting to enhance the quality of life for Black students on the campus. I was really into wanting to work in the community.
Wow.
Work in the community, work with the Panthers. So I resigned as president
I
of
see.
BLAC. So when all the BLAC stuff was going on with the Omaha 54, we had a brilliant brother out of Chicago, I believe, named, he was a Vietnam veteran named Robert Honore.
Bob
That
Honorary,
called
captain in the military.
Captain
Yeah.
Jericho, we called him.
Yeah.
So he was the president then. But I stayed involved with BLAC, but from a community standpoint,
Sure.
because by then I was working for the Wesley House, the United Methodist Community Center, working with youth.
Okay.
Okay. And that's the reason why it kind of went apart, going off.
Okay, but
So when
prior to Wesley House, had the Omaha 54 event taken place with the arrest?
no, the Omaha 50, I started at Wesley House in October of '69. The arrest, that whole Omaha 54 stuff took
Following
place,
year.
as I recall. No, in the following month in
Oh, I see.
in November of
69.
69.
I see.
Now, while it's not important, branding is everything. You are credited with giving our organization its nomenclature. I'm gonna toot my own horn, and many won't remember, but that phrase, Omaha 54, I came up with that.
You coined that. I remember
I
that.
coined it.
Yeah,
I coined
absolutely.
it in
Yeah.
a meeting at the Wesley House. I said,
And
Carl, 'cause I used to read the Black Panther paper, and people were the Chicago 8 or the this, that. I said, we're the Omaha 50.
wow, amazing history, amazing history. Black history, baby. Okay, out of Omaha, Nebraska. Absolutely. And so describe the incident briefly again. What happened? You were in protest of that incident that ensued from the
Yeah,
mishap
well,
at
we drew up a list of demands that included stuff like that we wanted to make things better. And actually, BLAC in the Omaha 54 in doing this made things better for all students, not just Black students, but the white students too. We talked about, we go to other college campuses and we see that the students run the student union,
absolutely, yeah, yeah.
not, senior citizens.
Yeah.
And
I think the incident, if I may suggest, it might trigger your memory, had something to do with the administration or the administering of the event, the dance or something, and it was not consistent with the agreement, but some administrative aide or assistant who was assigned to deal with that did
right,
not uphold her promises, or
exactly.
it fell inconsistent with the standards of the organization. And that's what you're
Well,
speaking about now in terms of getting all of that changed for all student activities at the
yeah,
campus. Speak to that.
yeah, because as I recall, the incident may have had to do specifically with her not making provisions for a DJ to be
Okay,
able to
there it
do
is. Something I think I
his or her
heard
job.
of something
That's
like
what
that.
that was the specific incident, and it was quite frankly embarrassing,
All right.
to us,
Oh, it was not
and we
insulting as well. Yeah,
and insulting
yeah,
because
yeah.
it it it, it followed other things that happened on
Sure, that
that
was just one incident in
That
a
was
number
just
of
one.
incidents that led to this demonstration uh, by the sitting in the chancellor's office. And how did that culminate
Well,
in the
it
arrest of
culminated,
54 people, right?
yeah, because we went over, we presented them perhaps on a Friday, as I don't recall, Thursday or Friday, with the list of demands. We said we're going to come back peacefully and hear your reply to these demands, 1, 2, or however. And we went back that Monday, nothing changed.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, well, guess what? We're not leaving. But one thing we wanted to maintain was to be peaceful.
Sure.
Because we knew, and personally, I knew, we had no wins out there on 60th and Dodge because we were far afield from the Black community. And there was no way I myself, nor any of us, not just me, but any of us, were going to raise hell out there.
Well, also in the tradition of civil rights demonstrations, the recent death of Martin Luther King in 1968, it was all
Yeah,
about nonviolent, peaceful disobedience, if you
right,
can use that expression. And as the good congressman referred to it as good trouble,
good trouble. So it culminated in us,
John Lewis.
John Lewis. And so it culminated in us getting arrested. They called the police. And I'll tell you this, I can say it now, statute of limitations, but I recall I was, as I said, I had a good relationship with the Black Panthers. And at that time, I was on the inside, I had a walkie-talkie. and see it. And I was talking with one of, I won't mention his name, Panthers on the outside, giving him updates on what's going on. And of course, being naive to radio frequencies and so forth, the police intercept our conversation.
Wow.
Identify yourself, because we had our own code words.
Wow.
They said, identify yourself, and I just cut the thing off. So when the police came, and by the way, I don't know if you were there or not, but if you were, refresh my memory. Was it was it Lieutenant Coleman? Do you
Absolutely.
remember?
African American, yeah.
Yeah, African American, Phyllis Coleman's dad.
That's right.
He was in charge of the arrest, but it was so peaceful.
Right.
And we walked out, and we were on, I didn't know we were on national TV because my uncle back in New York in the Bronx,
Give me, you're the date man, the specifics, man. Give me the dates of that, and let me tell you where I most likely was, because I remember covering that thing.
I would say November, middle November in '69, November 12th. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's why I was not arrested, because I was on the job.
Yeah.
Shooting footage for the night's news. Yeah, I remember that very well. And,
So they arrest all of us. We walk out arm in arm, as I recall, and there was more guys than women.
yes, but there were a handful of sisters in there as well. Yeah.
Sisters, but the ones who were, I recall my roommate walking out first and me second, arm in arm, and then I had to, take that walkie-talkie out because we were going to the paddy wagon and handing it off to the Panther.
Right.
I did, we used to do stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Was that Big Tommy Wright was your roommate?
No, Harry McGuire.
Harry Maguire. Actually, I remember the picture now. I will insert that photo later if I can find it. But Harry, that's my brother, man. I remember him.
Harry walked out
buddies.
There's a picture I saw recently in the library from UNO.
Oh, that has a collection
Harry was
of
the
that.
first out arm in arm with Vicki Webb, and I showed my wife
Vicki Webb, rest in peace.
the late Vicki
Absolutely.
Webb. And my wife could see me in the background.
Wow.
She said, "Oh, there you are," So I was second. Harry first. I was second, walking out like that.
This is a perfect time to mention why I get credit for creating a monster in you. Shed some light on that. That's our private joke, but I don't mind telling it now, because I was safe and secure hiding behind my job. I couldn't get arrested because I had to put you on the news. And
right.
But previous to that, there was some footage that I saw and I teased you about. Wow.
Yeah, this was right after this was back in '68, in late '68, very late '68, if not early '69.
Yeah.
I'm being interviewed. I'm on TV, with the big afro and talking. And I said something like, because the reporter asked me, "Do you plan to riot and tear up stuff?" or something like that. And I said, "No, we plan to be productive and not destructive," or something like that.
Right.
When you saw me later that day, you said, "I created a monster."
Yeah, that's for the record, ladies and gentlemen. Amazing. But that was Dwight. I remain fascinated by the fact that what would life have been like for you? Let's go back and revisit that. Had you not come to Nebraska to get educated?
Yeah, I can't imagine.
Hard for me to imagine too.
Except for this. In those days, what was going on in Omaha was going on everywhere.
Everywhere.
So I say that to say this. I recall, even though I didn't.
Well, certainly Newark, New Jersey, who was a short drive away from where you
Well, but I'm talking about, think of it nationally, things that were going on, and including Newark. You're right.
Absolutely.
Because I remember the night of the Newark riots. I'm at a party up in the rich part of Hackensack, Fairmount. And this guy says to me, let's go to Newark. And I said, whatever for?
Right.
Why do I want to go to Newark?
Uh-huh.
And he said, to riot. I said, what? He said, to riot. Because earlier that day, riding around in Teaneck, New Jersey, we saw the guys come, what do you call them? The National Guard.
Yeah.
Riding around. So what the hell is going on? It was 11 o'clock at night. But anyway, so I said said that to say this, to answer your question. I would have ended up going to school either at Montclair, New Jersey. They wanted me to come there, Montclair State, to wrestle.
Okay.
Or I didn't get into school I wanted to get in Connecticut. But my dad, where he worked, knew somebody that could have got me into a really good school, Colgate. I would have ended up going somewhere like that.
Wow.
Who knows where that would have twisted and turned.
Sure. Sure. Okay, that's just a question. I wondered whether you have imagined about that.
Never thought about that.
Yeah, yeah. That I was curious to me later on. Wow, how your life was impacted by your decision to come to Nebraska. But all
Hugely.
you just participated in that in what went down during those days in Omaha,
Yeah.
because we were like Detroit, Washington D.C., Chicago, and Watts in terms of a national perspective as to the revolt of the incidences of discrimination and
Sure.
oppression that went down, particularly
Sure.
with regard to violent police activity against African Americans, right? So, very interesting times, my friend, very interesting times. And when you come back on this program, let's pick up this story, which will include your analysis. And just I'll ask you briefly to tell me about your perspective about critical race theory, the pushback that is going on with regard to institutionalized re-entry of Black history or the history of America, the true history of America, and the pushback with regard to that on the state and local level, and Black Lives Matter, and a few other of these aspects of society that we are re-experiencing now. But what this program was about is describing how that evolved from the late 60s into the mid 70s, my friend. Do you have a word just to transition for the next time you appear on this show about modern day times and how that is connected to what you experienced? It's a pop question.
I'm going to use a musical metaphor.
All right.
It's a very quick 30-second story.
Okay.
There's a famous, I believe, saxophonist named Jackie McLean. He told us, and you met him?
Yes, I did. Yes,
Oh, wow.
He's out of Philadelphia, wasn't he?
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he told this young saxophonist named Steve Wilson, back then, who was from Virginia, who moved to New York. And they were talking about the evolution of music and,
Yes, sir.
and chords. He said, if you want to know where music is going, it's behind you.
Wow.
So this whole thing about this absurdity of critical race theory and the erasure of true history,
Yeah.
which is behind us, is our future. If we want to know our future, where we're going, we gotta know from 1619 forward what has gone on. And so apart from my clean energy work in solar and wind, I'm a geek in that stuff, mainly on the outreach and education stuff. I play an engineer on television.
Oh, well, okay.
I'm an avid reader now and studier of
Now,
everything.
as long as I've known you, man.
Well, yeah, but you know, it's really great. I'd like to just say it's really great when UNO had that program last summer to commemorate the 50-year anniversary of the Black Studies Department.
Right.
Yeah, I definitely want to say, yeah, I was glad in being, you know, part of the groups of people. It wasn't one person or
No, but you were instrumental in the
well,
foundation of that
yeah,
organization. I just want to
yeah,
make that clear
that
for this particular
organization.
program. Let's shout out to you for that. And it's pretty significant given your emergence into your activism in Omaha, Nebraska, a city of
Yes,
not of your birth, but that's
right.
basically the story of this particular episode that we're sharing. And
Yes,
I want to thank you too, and invite you to come back and share this space and time with me again as we continue to tell the
I'd love
story.
to.
And it's my
Love to.
pleasure. Please hold on
Yes,
here. I'm
sir.
going to end the show. Stand by as I bid adieu to my viewers around the world of the Global News Network, of property of Total Communications Company Limited and Japan Journal, the internet's #1 weekly online cybercast English language from Japan. And this particular episode of Rap About It, in its 52nd year of existence, renewed and remade here, featuring my good friend and good brother, Mr. Dwight Bailey. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and stay tuned for more coming up on Japan Journal from beautiful downtown Kakia City in the western section of Shizuoka Prefecture in commemorating Black History Month and week and year. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We bid you farewell.
Please support our program promotional campaign by smashing that like button, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to our channel. You'll be glad you did. Thank you.
Japan Journal with Mal Adams. The internet's #1 weekly English language online cybercast from Japan. This episode features our regular series, Rap About It.